Welcome to ASA Central Line, the official podcast series of the American Society of Anesthesiologists, edited by Dr. Adam Stryker.
Hi, and welcome to Central Line. I'm Dr. Keya Locke, your host, and I'm here with Dr. Alexander Choi, guest editor of October's ASA Monitor. The topic for today's episode is advocacy, and we're happy to have Dr. Choi here to walk us through some of the priorities ASA and the specialty are grappling with now. Welcome to the show, Dr. Choi.
Thank you, Dr. Locke. It's good to be with you again. We haven't talked in a while, so very happy to connect.
Yes, thank you so much. It's wonderful to connect with you and to hear your voice. And so before we jump right in and start talking about our topic, I'd like us to take a moment for you to introduce yourself to our listeners and talk a little bit about your role and your advocacy efforts.
Wonderful. Thank you. So I'm Alex Choi, and I'm a practicing anesthesiologist. I'm also past president of the Indiana Society of Anesthesiologists and vice speaker for the Indiana State Medical Association. Most recently, I've chaired the ASA Committee on Practice Management and currently chair the ASA Committee on Government Affairs. I'm also a registered lobbyist and a healthcare consultant. So for a number of years, well over a decade, I was in the leadership and I was the managing partner for my practice, Anesthesia Consultants of Indianapolis. And during that time, I really began to understand and learn about the importance of advocacy. Being down at the State House and realizing that legislators may not be as well informed as we'd like to be on issues in healthcare, but especially issues in our profession of anesthesia, I wanted to be more involved to be a resource for them as we moved forward. Now, how I did that was I engaged with legislators at both the state and federal level, as well as the governors, and I've served on various transitional and standing committees for governors, state legislators, members of Congress, and U.S. senators. I further got involved by running for a state representative position in my district in a caucus election. I ran for city council and did that for about 4 years. And I also ran for state senate, where I was nearly successful in winning that position. So as we moved on further into this current decade, we started engaging more of our colleagues in the legislative process. We wanted to make sure that we did a couple of things, keeping two missions in mind. One was that we protect our patients and provide the best care possible. The second was protecting our own profession and making sure that we thrive and grow as a specialty.
Thanks so much for that, Dr. Choi. And I'll just say, Dr. Choi, you were one of the first physicians to introduce me to the world of advocacy. So this really feels like a full circle moment for me personally. And so my next question to you, that being said, and it's starting with a little bit of an uncomfortable truth, and that is that we find things are continuously changing and not always for the better. Do you think the shifting landscape dissuades people from getting involved, or is it perhaps we should be finding it motivating? Maybe thinking about it another way, is it more important to engage when the future is more uncertain?
The answer to that is the age-old phrase, well, it depends. For some, it's motivating, and for others, it's a distraction and a detractor. So it depends on who you are and where you are on your advocacy walk. So there are reasons to engage more, encouraging to participate, and great opportunities to become more of an advocate as political landscapes fracture and we become even more polarized as the years go on. Now, that may change in the future and people may become more comfortable, but in the current situation, it is incredibly helpful with the narrative behind the change we want to see for our patients and our profession.
Thank you so much. And moving right along, thinking about, the list of potential legislation that deserves our attention, I'm sure that list is exhaustive and would take up multiple episodes. but can you sort of summarize and give us some of the top priorities that the specialty is grappling with now?
Of course, I think one of the most important priorities at this point is the constant battle over scope of practice in the VA system. That encompasses a number of issues, and that has to do with states getting involved in making sure that the quality of care is consistent in their VA hospitals, and also whether or not it serves the patient safety best by having this kind of lack of oversight at the cost of healthcare savings. So, no matter what, our priority is to make sure that the patients are well taken care of and that we don't have, number one, as far as different states go, two levels of care within a state. That the state recognizes that there needs to be physician oversight of our colleagues who are nurse anesthetists as well as anesthesiologist assistants. So we want to make sure that the VA system also provides the same level of care that the states mandate in their hospitals and health systems. Now, within that, we want to continue to strive to make sure that the veterans that served us for a number of years in sacrificing their well-being, their futures, and their lives, that they are offered the same level of care that are present in the rest of the state. The Murphy letter that over 80 congressional representatives signed on to really encourages the VA system to maintain that level of care. Now, we have engaged with legislators, but we've also engaged with various organizations, including veterans organizations, as well as various state level organizations in different states. So that is one of them. The other couple of things that I think we really need to focus on is not to do with scope of practice so much as it has to do with maintaining the integrity of our physician, especially the financial integrity. And that's things like the surprise billing issue that Congress passed and CMS is charged with enforcing. So there are violations of that on the insurance level that we need to continue to correct. Texas has taken the lead in advocating for us all as a profession for timely payments. And those kind of violations of the No Surprises Act really needs to be paid attention to. And really, we need to hold the insurance companies, especially the big ones, accountable. And dovetailing onto that are things that the insurance companies are doing most recently by Anthem in attempting to cap the amount of time that is reimbursed. And so even though that failed to proceed at the moment, you know that these insurance companies can change their policies at any point. So states like Maryland have enacted state level legislation to prevent these occurrences from moving forward. I want to say also that all these things start at some level, whether it's state or federal, and impacts the opposite level at state and federal. So it's important that we get engaged at both levels when we're talking about advocacy on the business side. There are also other battles to hold health insurance companies accountable, including timely payments for anesthesia reimbursements. I think it's common knowledge that insurance companies delay payments towards the end of the year, or they also delay payments when it has been found by the mediation system through the No Surprises Act that they are not paying in a timely manner the decisions that were made within those mediations. So we need to engage with all of that. All advocacy starts at home, and this is one of those areas where that's very much true.
Definitely understood. And Dr. Choi, just piggybacking off of that, some of these topics sound familiar even to me on the advocacy trail. Would you say this is something that people need to be committed to engaging in year after year?
Oh, absolutely. I think that the battle is never lost until it's lost. And when we look at things like scope of practice, unfortunately, we're going to have to constantly deal with it year after year because there's no turning back once it is won by our opponents at the state and federal levels. And same with things to do with insurance companies or hospital engagement. Not that hospitals are bad. We have many anesthesiologists that work in health systems that are really very good for them. But we want to make sure that the health systems are held accountable for the engagement with our profession as well as with the patients that we serve.
Thanks so much for that. And taking a moment to focus on some of the efforts that have been made, can you share with us some legislative wins for the past year or two, both federal and on the state level?
Sure. I think most recently, if you want to look at the practice of anesthesia, one of the biggest wins is the temporary doc fix that happened as a part of the Reconciliation Act, the so-called Big Beautiful Bill. That was a huge win for us. So historically, as many of our audience may know, there has been a lag in Part B compensation of Medicare, where physicians and other providers really didn't receive an increase in their Medicare reimbursements for decades, while Part A received inflationary adjustments over that same period of time, just widening the chasm between Part A and Part B recipients. That was going to be unsustainable. And Congress recognized that, but there are efforts to fix this, whether it was the SGR fix many years ago, or it's the temporary doc fix within the Big Beautiful Bill or the reconciliation bill. Now, I talk about the temporary doc fix. It did have a positive adjustment for this year, but that is not set to continue past this next year. What we really need is a permanent doc fix. I don't want any of our audience to get the impression that division that occurs between Part A and Part B reimbursements is ever going to close. It's not like Congress, although it's possible, but it's not like Congress is going to find a windfall of money to close that gap anytime soon. What we want to see happen is to take the opportunities of things like the money that would be saved on problems within the Medicare Advantage system that we've learned about in the news most recently, and make sure that we continue to get inflationary adjustments year over year so that we have a positive adjustment and keep up with the rate of inflation at the very least. Because
Right.
adjusted for inflation over the past couple of decades, we've actually seen a decrease in overall provider reimbursements and especially within anesthesia reimbursement. So I think that's one of the biggest wins of this year. The other things that at the state level have been wins is an expansion of the number of states that have a CAA licensure, and also the number of states that have fixes to insurance issues such as timely payment and the cap on anesthesia time, like I talked about previously. Other
Right.
wins at the state level have to do with title misappropriation. Indiana led the way in this, and I think that this is something that's important. It's not a scope of practice issue, and it has been mislabeled as such. And what it is it's proper understanding of who is treating you. What we want to make sure is that they understand who they're being treated by, whether it's a physician or other providers of healthcare, including our colleagues that are nurse anesthetists and nurse practitioners and anesthesiologist assistants. We're not trying to prevent anybody from practicing within their scope. What we're trying to do is make sure that people are not misrepresenting themselves as something they're not. And Indiana passed this bill a couple of years ago, and it has been very successful, especially along the lines of nurse anesthetists trying to relabel themselves as nurse anesthesiologists. It's confusing for patients as they are sometimes thinking that they are being treated by one type of caregiver when in fact they're being treated by another type of caregiver.
Thank you for that. I really like the way you explained that as to avoid any sort of unnecessary, friction or pushback. So thank you for that summary. Can you talk to us a little bit about how ASA is making a difference? and maybe some of the activities that we as a society are doing to move the needle in the right direction.
I think one of the most important areas of engagement for advocacy is the legislative conference that ASA puts on every May. It is a 3-day conference. And if you haven't been to it, it is a fantastic opportunity to not just network with like-minded anesthesiologists who are very heavily involved in advocacy, but also with legislators. We take a congressional visit to the various legislators within our state, and they are very engaged in meeting with people in their district and sometimes even out of their district. And when you're meeting with senators, the whole state is their district. So it offers an incredible opportunity to really understand how the US Congress works, both at the House level and at the Senate level. It's very informative. We have a lot of great speakers there. I chaired the legislative conference as the chair of government affairs. But I want to highlight that we have a number of programs there, including our development of political engagement as far as running for office if you are an anesthesiologist. And that has been incredibly successful. It is a panel that includes myself and Dr. Sam Page, who once ran for lieutenant governor in Missouri and is now the county executive for St. Louis County, a huge job in and of itself. And he is the former chair of government affairs as well. And Dr. Azarati, who is in the New Jersey legislator as an assemblyman. So all these individuals, along with myself, help to guide people, anesthesiologists who are interested in running for office in the future. So that's been a great program as well. So the other things are that the Committee on Government Affairs puts on more of the grassroots level things like the ASA 535, which offers a way to connect with and engage with your local legislators at the federal level. So we offer a lot of programs. You can learn about it online, or the best way to do it is to come to the legislative conference and learn about it in person. And Dr. Page and myself are always available to aid in the discussion around whether or not you should run for office and the process is involved, and provide some coaching and guidance in that realm. And you'll learn about a lot of different ways to engage with the legislators at this conference. So I think that's one of the most important things that we offer as ASA along the realm of advocacy.
Thank you so much for that. And I'll just, throw in a pitch for the legislative conference, especially for our junior listeners. I think that conference being on a little bit smaller scale than the ASA National Conference really presents opportune time to get involved with advocacy and network with some of the names that you mentioned on a real personal level, simply because the footprint is a little bit smaller. So definitely legislative conference is a good one to get your feet wet at. Can you talk to us a little bit about the range of opportunities that anesthesiologists have to plug in and to help?
There are a wide range of opportunities for anesthesiologists to be involved. One of the most difficult ways to get involved, but one of the most important, is to run for office yourself. And ASA and the Committee on Government Affairs, and as well as myself as the chair of CGA and Dr. Sam Page as the vice chair of CGA, we are very committed to helping guide your interest in running for office, whether it is at the city council level, like I had done, or as a state representative or as a state senator, helping and being a part of the process and running for an executive office like governor, or if you want to be the secretary of health or the commissioner of health, things like that. Or if you want to run for Congress, as Dr. Andy Harris has done in Maryland District 1, the first and only anesthesiologist in Congress and a leader in healthcare issues in Congress, and obviously a huge advocate for us. He speaks at LegCon every year and provides an update, a very focused update on how the government is moving the needle on healthcare issues. And I say that, But there are many other ways to get involved, especially in the grassroots networks, such as the ASA 535 that I spoke about earlier, where we help you get engaged with the congressional leaders. And if they are advocates for us, then we will help you to make sure that they continue to get elected. And it's not just about political contributions, it's about helping knock door to door and serving as a resource when they need healthcare. A lot of these congressional members and senators have healthcare roundtables or a set of healthcare advisors. And a number of anesthesiologists and physicians from other specialties are engaged in making sure that patient care is well represented with these members, because ultimately they're the ones that are going to make the regulatory and reimbursement and patient safety decisions at the congressional federal level to make sure that not only are the patients cared for in a safe manner, but that our practice of anesthesia is well protected. So there are also advocacy modules that ASA offers, Washington alerts that you can sign up for to let you know when we need to mobilize to be able to address issues at the federal level and sometimes the state level as well. But I also want to emphasize getting involved at the state level. You want to engage with legislators and executives at both the federal and state level, but local politics matters quite a bit. And what we want to keep in mind is that when you get to know people at the local level, at the state level, you can have a pretty in-depth conversation with them over a cup of coffee, and they are eager. Generally speaking, these state legislators are very eager to learn and have you be a advocate for not only our profession, but like I said over and over again, for our patients as well, because that really is the most important mission on an advocacy level for all of us. It's not about reimbursements. It's not about scope of practice. It's not about advancing how we are perceived within the legislature, but it's about protecting the patients that are so important to us and why we got into the practice of anesthesia in the first place.
And just expanding on that, as you kind of talk about that, the importance of that relationship with your state representatives. I know if you haven't, sort of engaged in that way, it can be a little daunting or scary even. Do you have any advice on how, us as physicians should engage or nurture relationships with our local lawmakers?
Absolutely. And I think the most important part of engaging with them is when you don't need them. When there aren't overriding scope issues or patient care issues or medical malpractice issues, practice issues, regulatory issues. There are a variety of things that we're going to be tagged with. But in the off session or in the years that we don't have a whole lot of needs from the state legislators or the federal legislators, that's the time to engage with them, because they will not be under the impression that you're engaging with them because you need something. What they'll think is, and this will be true, you're engaging with them to become a resource for them. And this kind of engagement is very important, and it builds the relationship when we do have needs to speak into their ear, that they are appreciative of the previous connection and are more willing to listen with a very open mind around that. And you don't need to make huge contributions to your representatives and senators and state senators and federal representatives and senators. It can be a small contribution if you're so willing, but there are other things you can do. You can help serve in a phone bank. You can help host a reception for them. You can go door to door knocking for them. All these things helps them to know that you are supportive of them, and in return, they will be supportive of our issues as well. Now, don't be under the impression that this is a tit for tat kind of relationship where they're going to always engage with you and be on your side because you did these things. But what we have is an opportunity for them to at least give us an audience and listen to our point of view. They may have different points of view, because a lot of people are speaking into their ear at the same time. But it doesn't mean that they're always going to be on our side, but at least we will be able to have a conversation with them. And that's really what's important.
Thank you so much, Dr. Choi. How has your experience editing this issue been? Are there any specific takeaways that you want the Monitor readership and or our listeners to take away from this issue?
Well, in this issue, we have a number of things that we address, but I want to again emphasize that we want more physician involvement. We want more anesthesiologist involvement, especially in public office. We want to nurture that progress, and particularly important to nurturing that is to get that from different backgrounds so that they can tell their stories. We want to be able to encourage people to become advocates for their patients and for themselves. And so that's what this issue is about. And I had a lot of fun editing it and really enjoyed engaging with the authors and with the Monitor and bringing that to you. There may be some who say, this is not something that's important to them and immediately throw it into the recycle bin. But there are going to be others that look at this and say, I want to get more involved. And if we even just get a handful of people to be more involved, that's a win for us. We want to make sure that we continue to push ahead on the mission of the ASA through advocacy. And I will also then put in a little plug for the ASA PAC as well, our political action committee. The PAC we call a purple PAC. We contribute equally to both sides of the aisle, and we make sure that we not contribute based on political parties, but on whether or not they are advocates for patient care and for our profession. So for those people that say you contributed to somebody I don't like, well, you may not like them from a variety of other issues, but generally what it means is that they were advocates for our profession and our patients. So that's kind of a little bit of a deviation from the original question, but I think it's important for us to understand the relationship between the Committee on Government Affairs and the ASA PAC and the ASA itself.
Thank you so much. I think this has been a great conversation. I appreciate the work you're doing, and I'm excited to read the issue. For listeners who are also looking forward to the October Monitor, you can dig deeper into these topics at asamonitor.org. And please come back soon for more Central Line.
Hi, this is Dr. Scott Watkins with the ASA Patient Safety Editorial Board. The World Health Organization, WHO, defines patient safety as the absence of preventable harm to a patient and reduction of risk of unnecessary harm associated with healthcare to an acceptable minimum. In order to better understand how safety in healthcare is managed, clinicians should be familiar with three philosophical approaches to safety engineering, referred to as Safety 1, Safety 2, and Safety 3. The Safety 1 perspective assumes that accidents, errors happen because systems or their components malfunction or fail. In contrast to Safety 1, the Safety 2 perspective shifts from ensuring that as few things as possible go wrong to ensuring that as many things as possible go right. Safety 3 is grounded in systems theory, which posits that accidents occur when safety controls within the system fail to adequately handle threats or disturbances. In order for safety in healthcare to continue to evolve, then all clinicians need to understand safety engineering and take an active role in designing healthcare systems.
For more patient safety content, visit asahq.org/patient safety. Be part of the solution. Connect with legislators about important issues facing the specialty. Join the ASA Grassroots Network at asahq.org/grassroots. Subscribe to Central Line today, wherever you get your podcasts, or visit asahq.org/podcasts for more.